The brand new dungeon, the Pit of Heresy, is finally live in the world of Destiny 2 Shadowkeep. And a lot of you Guardians out there are looking to get that challenge done, explore the new world space, and claim the rewards therein. Well, in this video, we're going to be giving you a full guide to the 4 different encounters you'll find within the Pit of Heresy dungeon, complete with tips and tricks for getting things done. So, let's go ahead and get started. Now, this begins with preparation. You're probably going to want to have your hands on some hive mods which you can get from the menagerie. Having any of these for the bonus damage to hive is going to make your life much easier, especially if you're trying to solo the Pit of Heresy. Next up, you're going to want to be at least 940 power to try this activity. The final boss, I do believe, is in the 960, so the higher your power, the better your chance at completing this. Finally, you'll need to complete a quest available from Eris called the Deepening Wake. It's a quick quest that'll simply require that you go and play the new Altar of Sorrow activity in the Sorrow's Harbor. That activity is basically a mixture of Blind Well and Escalation Protocol. It won't take you that long at all, but once you complete that quest, you will gain access to the Pit of Heresy. And from here, we're ready to get started with the party. Once you've started the activity, descend into the pit. And after following a short path, you'll make your way to the first encounter. You're going to come into an open area alongside a cliff with a bunch of different towers with hive symbols on them. You need to drop down into one of these towers, defeat a pit knight guarding a room, and then head inside that room. Inside, you're going to see a chain with several hive charms on them. These charms will have specific symbols reading from top to bottom. These symbols tell you which towers you need to go to kill 3 specific enemies. So once you've seen the pattern of charms hanging here, you need to head back outside, find the towers with those specific symbols in the order that they're shown, and take down the named enemies you'll find inside each of them. Now, the gimmick here is that each of these named enemies can only be taken out with the new empowered hive sword. So you'll need to take down one of these sword-bearing hive knights, grab his sword, and use the abilities of the sword to take down these specific enemies. Now, like I said, these 3 enemies, a Shrieker, a Wizard, and a Knight, are going to have some specific mechanics tied to them. The Shrieker you can only kill by reflecting his shots back at him. You can defend with the Hive Sword just like you do with some of the normal exotic or heavy swords that we've got. For the Wizard, she can only be killed by utilizing the sword's heavy attack. This works a lot like the exotic the Black Talon. You basically hit your big slam button and you'll shoot out a beam. Use this to take down the wizard. And finally, for the knight, he can only be taken out by the light attacks and the super attack from the sword. So just spam sword swipes to take him down. Anyways, once you've taken out these 3 enemies, the path forward will open up and you can get on to the next part of this quest. Once you've grabbed your loot, head over into the next area, where you'll make your way to a bridge in front of a series of doors. All of these are Jabates. Ignore the doors and look for a broken hole in the wall near the bottom right. Make your way through it and follow the path until you reach a dimly lit room with little tunnels hidden all over the place. These tunnels will be covered with a hive membrane that will open up if you deal damage to them. The rooms will also be filled with gigantic pariah ogres, unkillable ogres who will be patrolling all around the world space. And if they see you, they're going to chase you down until you hide in one of these holes. Your goal in this section is actually pretty simple. There are going to be 3 locked doors down 3 different paths in this area. A path on the far left, a path directly in the middle, and a path on the far right. These doors will require a special orb to be deposited into each in order for you to advance. And thankfully, getting those orbs is rather simple. Within the small hive hidey holes, you'll find heretic knights. Defeating these major level knights will drop the orbs. So basically walk around this area, going through these holes until you see an enemy pop up on your radar. Head towards that red dot, defeat the knight, grab the orb, and then drop it in the 3 doors. This means you'll need to defeat 3 of these knights for 3 of these orbs. And once you figure out that it's literally left, right, and center, this section doesn't really take too long at all. If you're having trouble navigating, just keep in mind like this. From the start, if you hug the right wall, you'll find the right door. If you hug the left wall, you'll find the left door. And the same can be said for the path directly in the middle. Once I realized this was just a 3-lane area and not some gigantic circular maze, this got a lot more simple for me. But if you're still having problems with it, here's a fantastic 10 out of 10 illustration Gigs did that'll make it a lot easier for you to understand. But go ahead and take out your knight, deposit the 3 orbs, and let's move on. Now, the next area is going to be a major throwback for you D1 veterans. You'll recognize this as being very similar to the Totem section of the beginning of the King's Fall raid in the Taken King expansion. And the mechanic is going to be very similar. You're going to have a totem in mid. Somebody always needs to be standing on that totem. But while you stand on it, you're going to gain a stacking debuff. And once you start this activity, it's going to become basically a kind of wave defense mode. Hive are going to be coming from everywhere. Your job is to take them out while standing on this totem, and then swapping out the debuff. You can do this by killing some specific major level knights that'll pop up. These knights will be boomer knights, so they're pretty easy to see. Once you kill the major boomer knights, they're going to drop an orb just like they did in the previous area. If you look at the big wall behind the totem here, you're going to see 6 Hive runes. That's going to correlate to the number of times you're going to need to kill those knights, grab those orbs, bring them back to the door, and slam away. Each time a Guardian does this, they'll break one of the seals on the door, as well as lowering the stack debuff that they have on themselves. Meaning, you're going to have to alternate who's grabbing these orbs to make sure that their stack doesn't get too high. Of course, if your stack on that debuff gets too high, it's going to be game over and everybody's going to wipe. So the rotation is simple. Have somebody stand on totems, kill adds. When the knights spawn, take them down, deposit orbs. Wash, rinse, repeat. Now, just like in the totems encounter in King's Fall, there are going to be boomer knights who pop up in the top left and right alcoves. You're going to want to take them out immediately because they are very aggressive and they can ruin your day. Thankfully, their health isn't too high. A sniper shot or 2 is generally enough to take them down. But anyways, once you've deposited all 6 orbs, the encounter will end and you can make your way through the door. Through here, you're going to have another jumping puzzle that's kind of similar to the one that's in the 0 hour mission. You're basically going to be making your way through traps, and if you touch any of the spiky walls or rolling pins, it's going to be an instant death. But once you've made your way through the jumping puzzle, you'll find yourself in the middle of a jumping puzzle maze. This area is huge, but thankfully, because of the radar, it's not that hard to navigate. Your goal here is to kill 3 wizards. And these wizards will be located on different altars spread around this circular area. Now, the way this encounter is supposed to work is you're supposed to look at the symbols and look for the towers with the symbols on them, and then go there and find the enemies. It's much easier to just look at your radar and go wherever the red dot is. Which, while simpler, is still a bit confusing with how big this jumping puzzle is. But thankfully, Destiny the Game subreddit user Primo Pastafarian made a fantastic map showing where all of the towers are, and giving a bit of a clearer way to get there. So if you look at this image here, the red dots are the different towers where you can potentially find the wizards at. You'll only need to kill 3 of them. So as you're heading around this jumping puzzle, keep an eye on your radar, and if you get a little bit lost, refer to this map here. There'll be a link to it down in the description box below for you to download. But anyways, once you've killed the 3 wizards, the path at the far end of the room will open up, and you're ready to move on to the final encounter. Now, this last encounter is rather interesting. It's going to incorporate mechanics that you've already used several times throughout this dungeon. This boss fight is going to be against Zulmak, the Instrument of Torment. And while it has a lot going on, it's not as difficult as, say, the Morgoth encounter in Shattered Throne. But once you enter his arena, you're going to see 3 towers surrounding Zulmak. Each of these 3 towers is going to house an enemy identical to the ones you killed in the first part of this Pit of Heresy. It's going to have a Shrieker, a Knight, and a Wizard, and you're going to need to defeat them the same way you did at the beginning of this guide, utilizing the power of the Hive's swords. Bladed Knights will spawn all around Zulmak, so you always have a sword available to you. And once again, the method for taking out these hives are this. For the Shrieker, you're going to need to use your block button and reflect its shots back at it. For the Wizard, you're going to need to use your heavy attack button to fire blade beams, which are the only thing that can bring her down. And finally, for the Knight, he can only be taken down with light attacks and the Sword Super. Anyways, once you've defeated any of these Hive enemies, they're going to drop an orb, and you know what to do with those by now. In the middle of the battlefield where Zulmak awaits, you're going to see altars. You're going to need to deposit those orbs into the altars, and once you've deposited all 3, the damage phase will begin. Zulmak will become vulnerable, and you'll be able to start your fresh wave of DPS. Now, there is a bit of a mechanic tied to that as well. You need to get into the very middle of the room in order to damage Zulmak. Don't worry, it'll be pretty obvious where you need to stand. The entire area will light up in green, you'll need to get into the mid, and then you'll be able to damage him for a set period of time. Here, I definitely recommend Izanagi's, Mountaintops, Firing Lane Sniper Rifles, Whisper of the Worm, whatever you can do to dish out as much damage as possible. If you've got somebody with Divinity, that'll make getting those crits much, much easier. But your time for dealing damage is short, as when the boss kneels down, he's about to initiate a wipe mechanic, and if you're standing too close to him, basically if you're standing in that inner circle where the green floor is, it's going to turn red and you're going to get wiped. So as soon as you see the boss kneel down, jump out of the mid and get ready to start the mechanics all over again. Anyways, wash, rinse, repeat. Make sure you're watching your back since there are going to be a lot of Hive in there. And you should be able to take down Zolmik without too much trouble. Now, for some tips here, before you start your damage phase, you're going to want to make sure you clean a few things up. Of course, keep Thrall and whatnot out of the middle area before you dunk that final orb. And if you can, try to lure Zolmik away from the altar that you're going to be slamming your last orb on before you do so. His slam attack works just like every other boss stomp mechanic in the game, and it will push you off the cliff or into walls and result in some seemingly unfair wipes at unfair moments. While there is definitely a benefit with like Firing Lane Sniper Rifles to stick together, don't ignore Zolmik's attacks even if you're in a well of radius. He has one slam which shoots out a wave of fire that can wipe your entire team if you're all standing too close together. So definitely be aware of your surroundings here. But generally, if you have one of your fire team members, lure him away from the altar before slamming your final orb. He doesn't tend to move around too much in damage phase, so you shouldn't have too much trouble taking him down. And once you do, congratulations, you will have completed the Pit of Heresy. Wait for your chest to spawn and then grab the loot therein. You should receive a fully masterwork piece of pinnacle gear, hopefully making this entire encounter worth your while. But once we've got it, there we go, that's it, you have completed the Pit of Heresy. Overall, it's a very, very fun dungeon, a little bit shorter than the Shattered Throne, and I would say a little bit easier as well. So if you're somebody out there who likes to solo this kind of content, or solo it for the Triumph or Emblem or whatever you get for that, you're probably going to have an easier time doing that with this dungeon than you did with the Forsaken one. But I love the puzzles inside here, I love the references to the Taken King, and I think a lot of you Guardians would agree with me when I say I want to see that special Hive sword used in other activities or turned into an exotic or something. It was so cool to have this Hive sword that did 3 different special things. You could shoot beams with it, you could reflect attacks with it, and of course it had access to the sword super slam. It's just a really cool evolution upon the Hive swords that we've already come to know and love in the game thus far. But alright Guardians, there we go, that is your guide to the Pit of Heresy. Hopefully it helped, and I wish you Guardians luck with your solo runs. But that is going to be it for this one. If you enjoyed, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. But I'm out for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.